Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome to another episode of Geeks Reads. Today I want to talk about Out of the Dark by David Weber, an image of which you will see here. This is a science fiction book. I haven't read much science fiction lately. Not sure why. I mean, aside from C.J. Cherry. She's one of the few sci-fi authors that I've stuck with over the years. I've leaned more towards fantasy, and my current reading stuff is more urban fantasy. But I digress. This is science fiction. The premise of this book is an alien invasion. Read the back cover. It's like, Earth is conquered. The Shangari have arrived and killed half the human race, yada, yada, yada. So, I read the premise on the line. It's like, this sounds really like a really interesting book. I'm going to read it. And, yep, alien invasion. Some humans rebel. Stuff happens. There's some interesting characters. Unfortunately, I'm going to start off criticizing this book. Without giving, I don't know, I'm not going to go into detail with the characters all that much. And not initially. I'm going to have to go through the book a little bit at a time. My initial criticism of the book, to start off with, the first 100 or so pages of the book, the invasion hasn't happened yet. 20% of this book is prologue, kind of. It's all about the stuff that happens before the invasion. And you see everything from the human side and the alien side. And the aliens are kind of ordinary. I think I've gotten spoiled with some other authors that try and make aliens seem alien. These aliens are very normal. They're the kind of aliens you would see on Star Trek. They're obviously conquering they're conquering aliens. They're here to subjugate the human race. So not necessarily very nice people, but they're not horrific monsters. They're not incomprehensible. They just have better technology, and they think they can take advantage of us because of that. Like the conquistadors going into South America. They had bullets and armor, and the Aztecs had, wooden and stone weapons. So, that's basically their premise. They can take advantage of us. They're going to. So the aliens seem very normal. And like I said, the first 100 pages, nothing much happens. But what does happen, there's no tension in the first 100 pages at all. Because you know what's happening. You know exactly what the aliens are planning. You know exactly what the humans are planning. You know exactly what the kind of stuff that the aliens are doing that are causing some slight disturbances. You see the humans' response to it. So there was like no tension. There are some characters that were introduced to in those first 100 pages that you might see once again, very briefly, and then are never mentioned again. So like there's virtually no setup for them, no continuation for them, no reason for them to exist at all. They provide nothing to the plot, very little to the plot. I can't say nothing. They do provide some to the plot, but you could have avoided a lot of it. You could have condensed a lot of it. I think this would have been so much better if you had written this with almost no alien knowledge of the aliens. Give us a tiny bit, just enough to keep us, on the edge of our seats. The author gave us too much. He gave us everything the aliens were planning to the last detail. So like when the invasion actually does start at like page 110, it is kind of a shock. It's like, oh, something happened now. Something I didn't expect to happen happened. They finally launched the invasion and blew up all the major cities and killed half the world's population, in an instant. Okay. I think once that happens, the story progresses better. You have the initial human reaction, which is utter confusion. The assumption that maybe someone else has started it. Maybe it's the Russians. Maybe it's, a terrorist attack. No one knows what's going on until the aliens finally reveal themselves. And then the alien resistance starts happening, which could have been more interesting than it was. My second critique of the book, maybe my third, considering I mentioned a couple things for the first 100 or so pages. David Weber seems to really like the military to an unhealthy level. He seems super gung-ho about guys in uniform, like Michael Bay. Uh, which maybe if you're a fan of Michael Bay films, you might like this book more than I did. Yeah, this guy really, really likes the military. Can't say enough nice things about guys in uniform, about the guys in the military, about how awesome they are. Can't say enough about them. Loves them to death. The other critique about some of the human rebellion stuff, he really likes guns. And he really likes talking about gun specifications and various models of guns and how they perform and muzzle velocity and different ammunition types and, different grains of ammunition. He goes on at length, a lot of length about ammunition and muzzle velocity and, foot-pounds per square inch of impacts of certain types of ammunition. I could open a gun store now after reading this book. There's like, not necessarily about guns, but there's like a 3.5 page point of plot exposition that was entirely unnecessary. He goes on at this one topic for 3.5 pages that could have been a paragraph. And like the initial detail was kind of necessary, maybe half a page, maybe even a full page. But he went on, I counted, he went on for 3.5 pages for one point of plot exposition. That was totally unnecessary. I feel like I'm one other complaint. There was a plot twist at the end, and it was a very interesting plot twist. I really enjoyed it, but there's no setup for it. There's nothing that would lead you to anticipate this plot twist. It comes out of thin air. Not quite thin air, but it really just almost comes out of nowhere. It's a fun plot twist. I liked it, but there was no setup for it. It's like any setup for it happens at like page 300. You get this first little hint. Maybe if you go, oh, okay, so that's what that was. But there's no way you could possibly guess the plot twist. And the good thing about plot twists and mysteries and stuff like that is that you're given a few breadcrumbs that might let you guess what the plot twist was. You're given in a murder mystery, you're given hints of who the killer might actually be. That once you are given the final result at the end, you can go back and say, oh, I see all the breadcrumbs that were laid before me now. I see how this led up to this. I see how this person hid their, once the mystery is revealed, you can see, all the ways you could have figured it out. There's none of that, or virtually none of that. There's maybe 2 things that might hint at the plot twist at the end. And just was not set up well, in my opinion. Now, having ranted for approximately 8 or so minutes about my critiques of this novel, and I feel bad about doing that because there is a good story here. There really is. This wasn't really a page turner, but I didn't really have a hard time picking it up and reading. I kind of kept on a daily schedule. I'll get up and read a chapter. I'll read a chapter. I read like a chapter a day. Sometimes, we lost power. So when we lost power, I read I finished the book. So if I hadn't lost power, I might not have finished the book by now. But there is a good story here. I just think, and I don't necessarily blame the author. I blame his editor, because some of this stuff should have been caught in editing. Could have condensed a few chapters, could have condensed some of that unnecessary massive plot exposition. You know, and I'm not even a book editor, but I am a book reader, and even I can see that someone needs to rein this guy in. And to be sure, it wasn't just me complaining. I did go back and reread one of my older books. I actually went back and reread the last book I reviewed, Barbara Hambly, Those Who Hunt the Night. And the author does do a fair bit of, plot, going back and rehashing some plot exposition here and there. It's peppered throughout the book, but she doesn't spend more than like a paragraph or two here and there. It's not as excessive as this guy here. I liked the ending. There was some stuff about, even though I complained about the plot twist, there was some stuff about the ending that I really, really liked. I really liked the way the conflict resolved at the end. I got a big kick out of it. And there was a sequel called Into the Light, which I'm interested enough that I am going to get the sequel and I am going to read it. When I was looking online about stuff about this, there may be a third book in the works. We'll see how number 2 goes before I commit to that. But I am interested enough in how this book ended. It's not a cliffhanger, not really. A little bit of a cliffhanger. Not necessarily a cliffhanger, more like it's open-ended. Yeah, not a cliffhanger, but it's open-ended. It certainly leaves room for a sequel. And I will go out and buy it and I will read it. So I can't, I do feel bad about trashing the book so much in the beginning. But the story is kind of, because he bounces back and forth between characters, bounces back and forth between the humans and the aliens, and he does it in a way that doesn't let you linger. I didn't really have any emotional connection with any of the human characters. I actually had more of a connection with the aliens because there was only 3 of them that we ever actually meet, so to speak. We ever actually get on a first-name basis with. So, I mean, they were consistent. The ones that were introduced to temporarily are there for one half a chapter and we never hear from them again, so we don't need to connect with them. But, the recurring alien characters that we meet are consistent, as opposed to bouncing back and forth between half a dozen human characters, for very short chapters too, unlike other authors who've done this, unlike Brandon Sanderson, who does that with the Stormlight Archive. We get long chapters with these characters, so we really get to know them well before they skip on to someone else. This guy just bounces, the short chapters are short, so I didn't really feel any connection to the people. I really wouldn't have cared if any of them had died. I won't tell you if any of them do. But I felt no emotional connection to these people, to the tragedies and the tragedies that may or may not have happened in their lives. I felt no connection with their successes and their failures and their tragedies. They were just names on a page. So because he didn't spend enough time with any of them individually to really let them sink in. So, there's a good story here, and I did enjoy it. But man, it's sloppy, in my opinion. I realize that my opinion may not agree with people. Maybe people who like guns more than I do will enjoy this more than I will. But even so, it is a good story. I'm going to give it a B- though, just because I feel it's sloppily written or sloppily edited or poorly edited. Take from that what you will. But there we have this review. As always, thanks for watching. If you liked this, torture yourself with something else that I've done. And until next time, good hunting.